The chosen ones possess a rare and valuable power, the ability to perceive the hidden signs behind the masks that people wear. They know that human behavior is not always clear and direct, and that there is often much more going on beneath the surface. With a keen eye and careful listening, they can discern the true intentions and emotions that words do not always reveal. This power is not something mystical, but rather a sharpened skill that can be developed through the practice of observing and understanding subtle details, such as facial expressions, involuntary gestures, or even pauses in speech. When someone has this gift, they can perceive what really matters to the person around them, identifying fears, insecurities, or essential values that may be hidden for convenience or strategy. Those who have this power do not need many gestures to perceive the truth. The simple ability to observe and understand the subtext allows them to navigate interactions with more wisdom and empathy, providing a clearer and more authentic view of the world. By developing this skill, the chosen ones become not only more observant, but also more connected with what truly matters in human relationships. If you also want to improve this skill and better understand the people around you, like the channel and subscribe for more tips on how to use this perception to connect in a more authentic and powerful way. One of the best ways to reveal someone's true self is through a simple technique that many of the chosen ones know how to use masterfully. When you say, "I'd love to hear more," something incredible happens. This small gesture of genuine interest triggers a reaction in the person you're talking to. Instead of feeling pressured to give quick answers or justifications, the person relaxes, feels heard, and ends up revealing more than they originally intended. The phrase, "I'd love to hear more," acts like a key that unlocks the potential for a deep conversation. Unlike common questions like, "Why?" or "What happened?" which can sound inquisitive or even threatening. This approach focuses on curiosity without judgment. This allows the other person to feel safe to open up and share their true emotions, stories, and thoughts. The magic of this technique is that it doesn't force the person to speak, but creates an environment where they feel they can express themselves freely. When you ask to hear more, you're basically saying, "I care about what you have to say." This kind of empathy creates a safe space where defenses come down, and conversations move from superficial to something much more revealing. Imagine how useful this can be, both in everyday situations and in negotiations or moments of tension. By using this technique, you're not trying to manipulate or control what the other person says, but rather allowing them to open up in a genuine way without external pressures. This technique can be extremely useful for the chosen ones, those who have the gift of perceiving the subtext and seeing beyond the surface. By listening attentively and with interest, you not only understand what is said, but also what is not said. What is missing from the words, what the person hesitates to reveal. All of this begins to become clearer. By listening without rushing to respond or change the course of the conversation, you allow the other person to reveal themselves completely, without resistance. In many cases, by using "I'd love to hear more," the person ends up sharing not only facts, but also deep feelings and motivations, often without realizing it. This creates a unique and genuine connection, where you understand the deeper layers of the other human being. It can be something as simple as a childhood story or a revelation about someone's fears and desires, but these revelations make communication more honest and rich. In addition, this type of interaction helps build trust. When someone feels that they are being truly heard, without haste to be interrupted or judged, the relationship strengthens. In negotiations or discussions, this can be the key to transforming a simple agreement into a real and lasting partnership. After all, people reveal much more when they feel comfortable speaking. Therefore, for the chosen ones, this technique of asking, "I'd love to hear more," is not just a communication trick. but an effective way to cultivate deep and authentic connections with those around you. By adopting this approach, you not only create a space of empathy, but also become a welcoming and attentive presence, capable of seeing beyond the obvious and truly understanding the complexities of the other. The second sign that the chosen ones can observe to identify someone's true character is in the way people treat those who are in positions considered inferior, such as service workers, like waiters, supermarket cashiers, or even colleagues in lower hierarchical positions. The way a person interacts with these people reveals a lot about their true nature. This is something fundamental, as it is in situations where the person believes that no one important is watching, that their real character is revealed. When you observe someone treating those who cannot reciprocate, such as a waiter or a janitor, with disdain or indifference, you begin to perceive who they really are. This behavior is a reflection of a person who has a superficial and hierarchical view of the world, treating others according to what they represent for their own benefit. For the chosen ones, this is a clear sign that this person is not being genuine in their actions, but is merely playing a role when they know that others are watching. For example, imagine a coworker who is extremely polite and charismatic in meetings, but in a relaxed moment shows rudeness to a restaurant employee, ordering them to do something without even being polite. This change in behavior may seem small, but it is in this type of situation that people reveal their true intentions. For the chosen ones, it is important to understand that this type of behavior is not just a momentary mistake, but a deep view of who that person really is. This sign is important because the chosen ones know that people's true nature emerges in the simplest interactions, where there is no need to act in a calculated way to please or impress someone. When the person has nothing to gain and still treats others with respect, it shows a genuine character. On the contrary, when someone is rude or disdainful of those who cannot reciprocate, this arrogance can be a reflection of internal insecurities and a desire to elevate themselves in the eyes of others. For the chosen ones, this is a clear warning sign. By observing this type of behavior, it is also possible to better understand how the person sees themselves. Those who are respectful to all, without discrimination, generally have a strong sense of inner security, without the need to feel superior to others. Those who are disrespectful may be trying to hide their own insecurities. They project arrogant behavior to feel more powerful, a strategy that actually reveals a lack of true confidence. Therefore, for the chosen ones, observing how a person treats those who have little or nothing to offer is an excellent way to judge their character. A person's true character is not revealed when there is something to be gained, but when the interaction is between equals, or when the person feels they can act without being judged or watched. This behavior reflects more about the inside of that person than any calculated attitude in a social pressure environment. For the chosen ones, it is essential to be attentive to these details, as they clearly show the true essence of who we are dealing with. A person's past is one of the most powerful elements for understanding their current behavior and attitudes. Although many believe that the past no longer influences the present, it never completely disappears. The experiences we live through, whether good or bad, shape our perceptions, reactions, and interactions with the world. In many cases, a person's attitudes are not reactions to immediate events, but rather responses to emotional wounds or patterns learned in the past. These patterns can be both positive and negative, but in any case, the past continues to exert a significant influence on how someone acts and reacts. For example, a person who has gone through traumatic experiences, such as rejection or abandonment, may develop a defensive posture when interacting with others. This does not necessarily mean that this person is being overly cautious or difficult for no reason. On the contrary, they may simply be trying to protect themselves from situations similar to those they have experienced before. Similarly, Someone who has faced great financial difficulties may have a constant fear of losing their stability, which can manifest in overly cautious or even risk-averse behaviors. In addition, the way a person deals with their own past traumas or challenges can profoundly affect their relationships in the present. People who are unaware of how their past influences their behavior may end up repeating negative cycles, such as the tendency to sabotage good opportunities or to distance themselves from people who get close. This happens because, often, the past does not stay in the past. It is brought into the present through the reactions and decisions we make. The process of reflecting on someone's past does not imply justifying harmful behaviors, but rather understanding their causes. This reflection allows us to see the human being in their entirety and with more empathy. Understanding what a person has already experienced can help to realize that their actions are not always about the present, but about how they are dealing with remnants of past experiences. This also allows us, in a constructive way, to help these people break free from the cycles of suffering or insecurity that they may be repeating. Finally, reflection on the past is fundamental for personal transformation. Often, when we recognize patterns of behavior that originate from our histories, we are able to make more conscious choices and eventually break free from the cycles that prevent us from growing. The past, therefore, is an important key to understanding the present and shaping the future, both for others and for ourselves. The fourth sign on how to better understand someone is related to an observation that many people don't make, but which can reveal a lot about a person's sincerity: the change in tone of voice. This change is an unconscious reflection of internal emotions, such as insecurity, lying, or hesitation, and can be one of the most effective ways to perceive whether someone is trying to hide something or is not being completely transparent. When a person is comfortable and confident with what they are saying, their tone of voice tends to be firm, steady, and confident. Words flow naturally without hesitation. However, when there is uncertainty, discomfort, or the attempt to hide the truth, the tone of voice can change in a subtle but noticeable way. This happens because the person's subconscious sends signals of stress or discomfort, which end up manifesting physically, especially in the voice. The mind tries to maintain the lie or hide the uncertainty, but the body cannot maintain harmony, and that's when changes in tone of voice occur. For example, a person who normally speaks with a constant and fluent rhythm may, when lying or feeling insecure, start to speak more slowly or even stutter. The tone of voice may become higher-pitched or, conversely, more monotonous, depending on the type of emotion being experienced. The brain tries to align speech with the lie or with insecurity, but the voice ends up revealing the discrepancy. It's as if the body cannot completely hide the emotional stress, and speech becomes the first clue. This sign is not limited to obvious lies. Changes in tone of voice can also indicate hesitation or discomfort with a situation, even when the person is not directly lying. For example, if someone who is normally animated and enthusiastic suddenly becomes more monotonous or indifferent when talking about a plan, this may be an indication that they do not fully agree, despite their words seeming positive. These variations are often subtle, but can be observed by those who are attentive to the big picture. By understanding that tone of voice can betray a person's intention, someone who is attentive can protect themselves from situations where sincerity is at stake. In professional or personal situations, being able to perceive these changes can help identify when someone is not being completely honest or is trying to hide something. This is especially useful in negotiations, where the goal is to understand not only what is being said, but also the emotions and intentions behind the words. In addition, this sign can also be useful for perceiving manipulative behaviors. People who try to manipulate or control others often use subtle changes in tone of voice to disguise their true intention. For example, an overly friendly or forced tone can be an attempt to cover up an underlying desire to control the situation. Therefore, by developing the ability to identify changes in tone of voice, especially in tense or emotional situations, you will be more able to understand a person's true emotional state. This allows not only a more accurate reading of others' behavior, but also offers the opportunity to protect oneself from manipulations or from people who are not being completely sincere. The knowledge of this sign strengthens the ability to perceive what is really happening behind the words and helps to act in a more informed and cautious manner. A person's behavior can reveal a lot about their emotions, insecurities, and even what they are hiding. Sudden changes in attitude, such as the transition from an optimistic and friendly person to a defensive or evasive posture, are clear signs that something else is going on internally. Often, these changes are not just an attempt to avoid an external conflict, but a way to protect oneself from uncomfortable feelings or realities that the person does not want or cannot face. For example, a person who suddenly starts to distance themselves from a topic of conversation, or who reacts defensively to a simple question, may be trying to hide something. Defensiveness is a common response when someone feels they are being threatened or questioned about something they prefer to keep secret. This does not necessarily mean that the person is actively lying, but rather that they are trying to protect a part of themselves, whether out of shame, fear, or insecurity. Evasion can also arise as a defense mechanism when the person avoids the conversation or starts to change the subject whenever something potentially uncomfortable is mentioned. This behavior is often a reflection of an internal conflict. The individual may be trying to convince themselves of something that is not true, or trying to avoid the reality of a situation. Human beings have an incredible ability to deceive themselves, creating a version of reality that is more comfortable or easier to accept. This self-deception is often what generates the observed changes in behavior. For example, when someone tries to minimize a mistake or avoid taking responsibility for a failure, defensive behavior may arise as a way to maintain the appearance that everything is fine. The important lesson here is the need to pay attention to nonverbal behavior. When someone changes their posture, becomes evasive, or reacts disproportionately to a simple question, it may be a reflection of the internal battles that person is facing. These changes should not be interpreted solely as an attempt to manipulate the other person, but as an attempt to manipulate oneself. Evasion or defensiveness can be a reflection of an internal discomfort so deep that the person is not even aware of how much their behavior is being influenced by it. Understanding this is essential to protect yourself from being manipulated by these behaviors. By noticing these changes in a person's posture and attitude, it is possible to understand that, often, these reactions do not have to do directly with the situation itself, but with the person's internal conflicts. Recognizing these signs can help you not get carried away by defensive or evasive responses and, at the same time, maintain a more empathetic posture. Empathy allows you to understand what the person may be going through, without judging them or reacting negatively to their changes in behavior. Ultimately, a person's defensive or evasive behavior is a reflection of the internal difficulties they are facing. When we can observe this without judgment, we can protect ourselves from being manipulated by these reactions and also help the person deal with their own inner struggles without pressuring them or making them feel even more uncomfortable. Instead of reacting with frustration, empathy and understanding can open a way for the person to feel more comfortable dealing with what they are hiding without having to defend themselves so much. It is worth noting that a person's true character is revealed in situations where they are not being observed, away from the spotlight. Stoicism teaches us that our values should guide our actions, regardless of the presence of others. The authenticity of our attitudes is manifested when we act in accordance with our deepest beliefs, without the need for external validation. A clear example of this is the actions performed when no one is looking in moments of vulnerability or challenges, where a person's behavior reflects what they truly are, without disguises or interests in impressing. When someone acts with integrity, even without the expectation of being recognized, this consistency in behavior shows a solid character, aligned with personal principles. It is not about acting correctly just to gain admiration or approval, but about acting authentically because it is aligned with our values, regardless of the presence or judgment of others. This principle is an invitation to self-knowledge and honesty with oneself. Observing people in their most vulnerable moments, when they are not seeking external approval, is a powerful reminder that, to truly live according to who we are, we must act with integrity, even when no one is watching. Stoicism challenges us to maintain this consistency, creating an authentic and meaningful life that reflects our true character, not a behavior conditioned by external circumstances. The sixth sign is related to emotions. After all, people don't explode or get upset without an underlying reason. These emotional reactions, often seen as disproportionate, are actually valuable clues that reveal what is truly important to them. When someone reacts with great intensity to a seemingly small or irrelevant situation, it is essential to observe this emotional response as a direct reflection of their priorities, fears, or deep values. The way someone reacts emotionally, whether explosively or with great enthusiasm, offers a window into what really matters in their life, even if they don't openly express it. Often, people try to hide their priorities behind a facade of indifference or serenity. They may appear calm in everyday situations, but when something they consider important is touched or challenged, their reactions show the opposite. For example, a boss who reacts angrily when questioned about a decision may, unconsciously, be defending their self-esteem or the idea that they always need to be right. This kind of emotional outburst is not necessarily related to the content of the conversation, but to the value they place on their authority or the image they want to project. Another example is the person who becomes overly defensive when receiving criticism. Instead of accepting the opinion constructively, they may react defensively because the criticism is hitting something sensitive within them, such as an insecurity or a weakness that they try to avoid facing. Similarly, someone who lights up when receiving a compliment on their work or actions is indirectly showing that recognition is something essential to them. Even if this person does not openly talk about the need to be recognized, their positive reaction to a compliment is proof that this recognition has significant value. These reactions, whether positive or negative, serve as a mirror of people's deepest priorities. Even those who tend to appear cold or indifferent, such as a colleague who rarely shows emotion, can reveal their true priorities when faced with something that directly affects them. For example, a person who never shows enthusiasm for anything may suddenly appear very excited when talking about a hobby or personal interest. This reveals that no matter how hard they try to hide it, something they value very much is being touched, and the emotion, although it may seem disproportionate, is a genuine expression of that value. This reflection on what truly impacts us is essential to aligning ourselves with the principles we consider important. When we identify what really affects us emotionally, we can question whether these reactions are based on our true beliefs, or if they are being distorted by insecurities or external pressures. Thus, the practice of observing without judgment, which is a central principle of Stoicism, leads us to a deeper self-knowledge, which is fundamental for a life aligned with the values we choose to embrace. For example, if someone reacts angrily to constructive criticism, it may be that this person is defending something related to their self-esteem or the perception they have of themselves. However, if this provokes a strong emotional reaction in you, it is worth reflecting on the reason for this reaction. Do you have something in common with that person? Or is this behavior touching on something you have not yet resolved within yourself? Stoicism teaches us not to project judgments on others without first looking at ourselves honestly, because true change begins with us. Therefore, the ability to read people or to perceive unspoken signs should not be used as a form of manipulation, but as an opportunity for personal growth. By understanding others better, we can also understand ourselves better. And by understanding ourselves, we can live in a more authentic way and aligned with what we truly value. This continuous process of observation and reflection is what allows us to evolve and act with more wisdom in our relationships, creating a cycle of learning that benefits both ourselves and those around us. Now that we have explored these important signs for better understanding people, and how Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, reflect on your own experience. Which of these signs do you already use in your day-to-day life to perceive the true intentions or emotions of those around you? Perhaps you have already identified changes in behavior or attitudes that reveal more about others than words can express. Comment.